being too hot or being too cold, hopefully you have enough clothes where you can make adjustments. But if that is the worst thing that's going to happen today, it's a good day. It's because that's something I've already experienced enough of that it just doesn't really even faze me. It's just part, it's like I really kind of really embrace it and kind of go out, and I will pick the worst night to go run in just to kind of get used to that. And I just like the challenge of it.
And huge welcome to the Ultra Running Guys family. We just want to thank you so much for spending your time with us. If you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel or follow the podcast if that's how you're plugging in. We have actually got a great lineup we're putting together, so we want to make sure that you guys are a part of that. But talking about some exciting stuff, our guest today that's joining us, Mr. Russ Leaptrot, actually just kicked my butt, and I think everybody's butt in the recent Southern Tour Last Man Standing event. Did 100 miles, 24 hours to win the event.
Unnecessarily.
So we're excited to talk about that. But a little bit more about Russ. This guy has a legit endurance background, has been in the triathlon realm, ran 100 or, completed a Ironman 140.6. Biked the entire 469 miles of the Blue Ridge Parkway.
That's a lot of hills.
If you've ever been on the Parkway, that is not a flat, easy ride. The guy worked for it, I guarantee it. Is closing in on a 3-year run streak, which we're excited to hear about. And probably most importantly to us, because we're family guys, he is a dedicated family man who really just enjoys living life with his wife, Rachel, his 2 young girls. And with that, Russ, man, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be a part of this, and thanks for the invite. I was when you first talked to me about it, I was really kind of just shocked and definitely honored to be a part of this. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, you're so welcome, man. Like I said, we're super excited. And to be honest, I think a big thing that we want to jump in, and we think that kind of our community will really benefit, is what got you to the Last Man Standing, in terms of, we want to talk your training philosophy, kind of your nutrition, and dig in there. But we did just come off a 2-part series specifically about the race. And we've been talking about the race, and you just won the race. So I think we'd miss if we didn't kind of dig into the details of that first. And so for everybody that's plugging in, if you didn't catch those, Last Man Standing is a standard backyard ultra format, 4.167 miles every hour on the hour. And then you go until there's one person left. And in this case, that was Russ. So Russ, man, the first question I want to know is, what was it like to end up as the Last Man Standing?
It was a little surprising. Obviously, I think we're all competitors at heart. You definitely got to be there to compete at any race. I think that's just part of it. But you just never know who's going to show up at these events. So there's always kind of that wild card of, somebody could just show up and be a really elite athlete, or just have a really good day, kind of like I did. But it was kind of definitely surprising to have such a smooth day as I did.
Yeah, you definitely had a smooth day. There's no question about that. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later, I hope. But when you got there that morning, you had a goal for the day. What did you envision your goal really being for the Last Man Standing? Did you set out thinking you're going to win? Was there a certain mileage? Was there a certain amount of time you thought you would go? Like, how did you forecast the goal for that actual event?
So I really wanted, I tried 100 miles just on my own, not in a race setting, and hadn't been successful. So I really wanted to get to 100 miles in 24 hours. And I've just recently went out on a solo run at Uwharrie National Forest. I just, with very little training, I was like, I just needed to, my wife knows me well enough. I was like, I just need to get away and go for a run. I think I'm going to try to do 100 miles. And I'd never ran out there before or anything. So, that didn't go so well. I could elaborate on that if you like, but it didn't go so well, but I learned a lot. And I stayed out there for 24 hours solo, unsupported. So I knew, and just with some previous race experiences, I knew I could go for 24 hours. And so that was kind of my first goal, is 24 hours and to get 100, and then just kind of see where I feel from there, how I'm feeling, and just kind of go from there. So I didn't necessarily think 24 hours would win it, but I had a feeling that would, keep me in contention. I'd maybe be in the top 3 or 5 or something at that point.
So I definitely want to know what happened at Uwharrie, and I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I want to know what happened at Uwharrie, and then, based off of that, what lessons you learned that you brought into Last Man Only. Because if I was listening to the podcast, I would want to strangle the host that didn't ask the question based off of what you said. So
Sure. So kind of my personality is, and just like the way I like to train. I enjoy racing, don't get me wrong, but I really enjoy the training sessions just as much, if not more sometimes. So the Uwharrie thing was just like, I'm going to go out and, run for 24 hours and 100 miles. And so, at this point, it doesn't really surprise my wife that much anymore when I, come up with these ideas. And I downloaded a map for Uwharrie, like literally the day before. And I knew they ran, they do a 100-mile race out there. And so I thought, well, there's a course out there that they do, and it's only about a 2-hour drive from my house. So I'll just.
Real quick, I got to ask, man, had you ever been there before?
Never been there before.
Okay, and you're probably getting to this, but for everybody listening, Uwharrie is known for not being an easy course. It is a tough course.
I found that out real quickly. So I knew it was tough. I knew it was going to be tough. So I packed up, some just nothing hot to eat, and then just, a couple changes of clothes, and, cooler with some fluids, and a vest with a bladder, and, just a light windbreaker or whatever. And I was like, okay, so this is the trail. I had the map and started going. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I didn't know it was going to be that hard. And there's I don't know how some of those folks, put up the times they do, because it's just not runnable. There's just so much of it, to me, was not runnable. I mean, it's just like, it's your typical kind of East Coast mountains, creek bed to mountaintop creek, so it's like, you can't really run up them because you're going to blow your heart rate up, and then going down, you're going to blow your quads out. And then it's just like, so it's like, there's very little flat sections or rollers where you can try to make up some time. But I was moving very slow, for me, there was not a lot of runnable sections, it's just everything, and all the fall leaves were there. So I was just like busting my toes on rocks and all this kind of stuff. So it went pretty good. Like the first 12 hours, I was like, all right, this feels good. But when it got dark, I started getting lost, because the front half of the trail has reflective blazes on it, but the back half of the course, or the trail, just has, white, blazes painted on trees, and most of them were faded. So I'm walking around with my headlamp trying to find these blazes and crossing creeks and all this. And eventually I fell in one of those creeks. My feet slipped off the rocks. And so it was pretty chilly that night. So luckily I had an emergency blanket with me. So I've got an emergency blanket on, and I've got it kind of around my vest, and I'm kind of getting it back to the car. So I did a quick change, and this is probably about, by the time I get back, it's about 20 hours into it. So I decided I'm just going to go out on the road, the main road, and just run and just see how many miles I can get, and just see if I can get warm. So I did that for about another 2.5 hours or so, and only ended up getting about 65 miles, but the single track just beat me up so bad, and I just couldn't get warm. So I just finally, around 24.5 hours or something like that, I don't know, I just finally I was done. So I laid back on the flat air. I called my wife. She said, I see you're not moving. I said, yeah, I'm done. So I just laid back on the flat air mattress for like 2 hours, 3 hours. And then, the traffic in the parking lot started picking up, and I was like, I'm not going to sleep now. So I just got up and drove home. So that's kind of how my training and runs go, just to really, I don't know, just try something kind of crazy and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's insane. So, because one of the things you were saying earlier is that, from doing that type of training, you learned a lesson going into last man standing. So I'm assuming that what you learned is how to manage cold and how to do that a little bit better, because at last man standing, you all were encountering, I think, 4 to 5 hours in the beginning of the race with just rain and cold weather. And then when the rain stopped, everybody had to figure out how they were going to dry off and everything. So, but one of the things I kind of want to kind of go back to is when we talked about your goal of what your goal was for the actual race in that day, and you were trying to run for 24 hours. Well, just for everybody who's listening, their sake, you ran for 100 miles, and the second place finisher ran for only 80, right? So he stopped around 80.
It was like 79 and change.
We'll call it 79 and change because we're not going to give you extra credit. So 79 and change, and you had an additional 21 miles that you ran. And so your goal was to do 100 miles. So the question for a lot of people listening is that you signed up for a last man standing. What was the bigger goal, running 100 miles or winning last man standing?
Ooh, I think it's really hard. I think they're both. I think honestly, probably the 100 miles was a bigger goal. I really wanted to. I trained for Umstead last year really hard, and then it got canceled, and so I thought that was going to be my first 100-mile race, and I was okay with it. I was like, no problem. But I just felt like that was like something that I really wanted to accomplish. And it was just kind of always just kind of sitting around back here, like, okay, when are we going to do this 100, And so that was kind of, I think, ultimately my main goal.
When I looked at the race itself, and I knew that you were continuing on, he was done, and I'm watching this event, and I actually told his wife, I said, it's funny to me. I said, because if anybody else could keep going, it doesn't matter if it was him or somebody else in that race. I said, running 100 miles has become so important to Russ. I'm wondering what would happen to get to 104. Like, what would happen at that point? So it's interesting. This reason I wanted to ask, because it was an observation I made about the fact that you went that next step, because most people out there at 80 miles, they realize they just have to run one more lap and get to 84 and win the thing. They're done, right? And so when you did that, it kind of set a mindset back for everybody to kind of say, look at this dude, he is continuing on. It was just an impressive thing to see at a last man standing that you took it a different direction for your own personal goal, which was, I mean, it's very admirable, I think, because you could have easily stopped at 84 and everybody would have applauded, but you kind of had your own thing. And I think, I respect that a lot. I really do. I think it's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess the next question I have, you mentioned, man, you had a smooth day, and I guess for anybody that wants to see anything from the race, Southern Tour Ultra Facebook page was going live pretty much throughout the whole thing. So if you want to see some of the video of Russ and the group doing all the stuff, or throughout the race, you can. And one of the things that will be apparent is that I essentially had a pit crew.
It was like NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, people had their crews. I had a relatively large one. And Russ, man, like you said, you had the minivan, you had a table or two set up with some thermoses, and we got to hear a little bit of the debrief as far as how you're doing. But what was your strategy in terms of nutrition during the breaks? What do you think helped lead to that smooth of a day?
It's been a lot of, kind of trial and error with nutrition. I've tried just gels and blocks and that type of stuff. And I'm actually kind of moving more away from that a little bit as my main source of nutrition. So yeah, it was just trial and error. And I mashed potatoes, I think that's kind of a hot item to try. And so, I thought, well, I'll try that. I love carbs, and, I think they'll go down easy with lots of salt. And actually at the, I think my first introduction to that was at the Pollitt Mountain 50 mile to Hanging Rock. One of the aid stations had a lot of boiled potatoes with a bunch of salt shakers. And it was just, and I was like, man, this is perfect. This is so good. It's exactly what I needed. So that kind of got me on that train. And then I'm actually a pescatarian. So, I only eat fish like once a week. So mainly a vegetarian diet. So I just got some like lentil soups and some, vegetable soups, and just kind of would water, pour about half in a cup with some hot water just to kind of water it down. And then I had some like veggie broth and some miso broth, just some hot liquids. And then just some generic granola bars and stuff like that, just to kind of to eat. But and then I would have like some Yoo-hoos with some protein powder, if I just, just to kind of get some more calories in, as far as that goes.
Were you eating out on the course at all, or was everything during the break?
Everything was during the break. I've never had any issues with, stomach issues with actually like, throwing up, but I've had like heartburn issues, and just kind of more nausea, issues, but not really like losing it. But it's more just, been that type of thing. So I was just, eating everything during the break, and then I would just have a spare granola bar on me and, a small handheld, if I got on the course and was starting to crash or something, I'd have at least a granola bar to eat.
I get nothing to follow up on that. I mean, I think it's really cool to hear that you have gone from, because a general staple for most people is using gels and goos and that kind of thing, and you're moving to more natural foods and real foods. The interesting thing that you said, though, is that you ate primarily only at the aid stations, because a lot of other folks, when we had one of the other podcasts, I guess the previous one to this, was the general discussion or consensus was they were going to try to eat throughout the running portion and use the time at the pit stop, right, to kind of recharge, maybe massage out. If it went really, really long, take naps, whatever it was going to be, deal with injuries, deal with blisters, something like that. But and so they were trying to eat separately, like, I guess, as they moved along and things. It's just a different approach to it. I think it's interesting to hear.
Yeah, and so my follow-up question is obviously, so I ended up having trouble pretty early in the race. It was cold rain, and I think it was the break. I didn't stay warm enough, and eventually I ended up with a leg issue. Every time I saw you, now granted I saw you only glimpses, throughout the whole day, but when I saw you during the breaks, it looked like you were staying on your feet, moving around. So I guess really the two questions I have is, what was your pacing like on the course? Did you do any walk running every time I saw you were running? And then during the breaks, was it intentional to stay on your feet or keep your body warm, or what was your thinking?
So I guess with the pace, I was trying to maintain, around 11-minute miles is kind of what I was shooting for. And so, I just kind of, instead of looking at the pace every, on the small screen with all that ticking by, and I can't see that good, and it's raining, and I'm just like, all that. So I just didn't even look at that. I just kind of paid attention more because, it started on the hour. So I knew, okay, I should be around mile 1 at the 11-minute mark. And that was that was like, to me, the easiest section to run, so I would really try to get ahead. I'm just coming off a break, and it's like, okay, I'm going to get ahead on the first mile. If I can do 10:30, great. And then, mile 1 to 2 was fairly easy, same thing. And then I kind of just gave myself some time in mile 3, that was kind of 2 to 3 was the hardest with, the mud holes and all that kind of stuff. And then back to mile 4, 3 to 4, it was just kind of same thing. Okay, where am I at on my time? Do I, stay where I'm at? And so it just kind of got where, if you've been running long enough, you especially the same course over and over, you should be able to get a feeling really quick of like, okay, am I running at 10:30 or am I running 11? So a lot of times I, wasn't really even looking at my watch. I just kind of, you can go by feel, like I'm right at about 11 minutes. So that's kind of how I did that. And then when I got back to the van, my fuse blew on my cigarette lighter down there for my charger, because I was charging up my watch each time, and my headlamps, but the one in the back did. So I would go back there, charge it up, first thing, crank the van up, and then get my food poured and let it start cooling off because it would be hot. And then I would just go sit down in the front seat of the van and just kind of relax, and, and then that was kind of my goal. But yeah, it was just, I was having to go back and forth because of the charging and sitting in the van and all that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna, if you don't mind. Yeah. I think you said something I think is pretty interesting, and maybe it's just interesting to me, and I mean, I think it's interesting, so I'm going to say it. But you set out and you actually just unpacked the entire course mile by mile. So we asked a pace question. I think most people approach a last man standing from the idea of, I've got to maintain an X pace the entire time because I want to be back between 44 to 50 minutes or whatever it is to give myself 10 to 15 minutes, right? But what you just outlined was that you'd run the course a couple times and you begin to adapt to understand that there's going to be certain sections you're going to run at a certain pace, and you're going to be comfortable with that, knowing that there may be a little bit slower section. Ultimately, you're still going to hit this same maybe overall 11-minute pace or 11.5-minute pace, but you systematically approached each mile as opposed to the entire lap, which I think is a good point to kind of break up the lap into even smaller chunks, 1 mile at a time. It's just an interesting point I think you made.
Yeah, that's definitely what I did, and I didn't answer his question about walking. I started out walking a little bit, just the first lap or two, because my adrenaline was just, pumping, and I just hadn't gotten warmed up, and I could tell my heart rate was just kind of all over the place just by feel, and so I did kind of walk because I was like, I got to kind of calm down a little bit, even though you're trying to stay calm, like your body's not, and so I did walk a little bit, but that was kind of one of my one of my race plans or discipline things is I try not to walk unless I have to. And I don't want to start that too early, because I feel like once I kind of start giving into that, it's just, it feels too good and you want to keep doing it. And then it also kind of gets me out of my rhythm of knowing that I'm on an 11-minute pace. I don't know where I'm at if I start walking again, then I have to adjust. Okay, so do I need to run faster now because I just walked for a minute and a half? And obviously you do, but I just don't like playing all those pace and math games. I would rather just stay at that 11-minute pace. And then it just kind of takes out all that, okay, I got to make up some time here or there,
That's impressive.
It is.
That's impressive, because most people set out to do a last man standing with a run walk mindset, meaning that's their intent. Is that, like, I agree, walking up front when your adrenaline was going through the roof was really smart also. But the strategy that most people are going to employ in a last man standing is to do some sort of run walk, I guess, method. And so you could have gone forever.
Well, and it may depend too, though. It may, like you said, you showed up today with 100 miles in mind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If it had been going, man, I might have to go 200 miles, then, I don't know if your strategy would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because to your point, in fact, a lot of the encouragement would probably be, hey, walk early on, mm-hmm. reduce the amount on the legs, but your body and what you were after, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, real smart. I wrote on my little piece of paper over here, I'm taking notes listening to you because I'm going to learn a lot from you. Just, you're very cerebral in how you approached everything. It's really cool.
Before we switch gears, my question to you, just having such a good day, is because we have people that are plugged in, that are going to be they're signed up for a last man standing. Coming off of this, man, what would be your best piece of advice for somebody who's about to do the same thing?
My best piece of advice, I think you need to train, and it's not necessarily volume, but I think you really need to train harder or put yourself in a situation that's going to be as hard, if not harder, than the race conditions. To me, that's just something I've really kind of learned and I enjoy about. That's why I enjoy training, because, I've done just on my own, I've done several runs starting at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, 40-mile runs out at Umstead or wherever, in 20-degree weather with howling winds or whatnot, and just in solo. So I think it's very important that you do that, because what it does for me is it kind of takes out the conditions, like the elements and the weather and the course and all that kind of stuff. Not saying that doesn't have an impact on you, but it's not. I think like when it started raining, that's why I turn my music on usually at the beginning when there's a lot of people around, because like, oh, it's starting to rain, and I don't like any of that negative stuff coming in to my brain, so I just turn the music on. But it's like I've already done this. I've already embraced it. So it's like if the rain, and I was talking with my other buddies, if it's like being too hot or being too cold, hopefully you have enough clothes where you can make adjustments. But if that is the worst thing that's going to happen today, it's a good day, because that's something I've already experienced enough of that it just doesn't really even faze me. It's just part. It's like I really kind of really embrace it and kind of go out, and I will pick the worst night to go run in, just to kind of get used to that. And I just like the challenge of it. But I think that's like my biggest piece of advice is go do some overnight runs. Start at 10 o'clock at night, and run till daylight, and run in some of the worst conditions you can find. and just still make sure you're training in those. I think that just kind of, I think it just gives you a lot of confidence, and it kind of takes out the conditions of the course, whether it be raining or whatever, it kind of takes that away a little bit.
So you see the benefits, obviously, of training in situations or conditions that are harder than race day and stuff, because it allows you to eliminate those from being problems that catch you off guard, right? Mm-hmm. It's a really good way of like seasoning the mind and seasoning the body to those type of extremes. And so that when you decide to turn your headphones on and tune everybody out, it allows you to say, I've been here before. It's not a big deal. It may, stink for everybody else. I'm really sorry to hear that, but I'm good because you've done it and you put yourself in that situation. It's interesting because, outside where we're at right now, it's raining and cold, and I'm supposed to try to run today and I don't want to. And so, but you challenge me because it's exactly what I should do in situations like that. So I think it's a really good piece of advice for people listening to what your training philosophy is on putting yourself in harder situations than we typically want to, because when we're training, right, it's a little bit more comfortable to say, I can pick the time I want to go. But when your race has a start time, you don't get to pick that. You just have to show up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it plays perfectly. And so the last man standing, everybody thought that it was going to be no rain. In fact, I even posted the week before, like, hey, we need to plan for the worst. And then I felt kind of foolish when I kept watching the weather. I was like, oh, it's going to be perfect. And sure enough, we ended up with about 4 hours of rain, and we lost almost half the field, I think, right before the rain ended. So with that, obviously you can plan kind of the night runs in those conditions, or going out to Uwharrie and making it tough on yourself. If you see that the weather is going to be bad, will you adjust your run schedule, or is it just more that if you were planning on it and the weather's going to be bad, you go regardless?
I go regardless. I mean, I Monday through Friday for several years now, depending on if I'm training for something specific, I typically get up 4:35 and do some upper body workout, core stuff, and then out the door 4 miles minimum every morning, Monday through Friday. Doesn't matter what it's doing outside. That's guaranteed going to happen. But I may spin on the bike for 30 minutes and then go run 4 miles, but I will do my 4 every morning, Monday through Friday. And then the weekends are kind of, I usually try to get up early so I don't take away from family time, and get it done either early morning, or I'll go out after everybody's asleep and go out at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. But that's typically the weather is just not a factor. It's just not.
I love it, man. Just out of curiosity, because we see it as kind of a trend item. When you say early, what's early for you when you're getting up on the weekend or anytime?
It really depends on if I'm going out the door, if I'm going to drive somewhere, obviously, but I try to stick close to home. But I would say early would be 4:30, but typically around 5, something like that. But I have I'd have everything planned already, as far as my clothes are out, food's ready, and any of that kind of stuff, and it's ready to go. So it's not a half hour or 45 minutes of getting stuff ready. It's like that, and that's another reason why I run a lot of by myself, mainly because when I have kind of a start time, I want to start, and I've tried hooking up with friends, and I like doing it, and I like running with them, but it's like I'm running 10 minutes late, and then they gotta get all this stuff on, and I'm like, I could have already had like 8 miles in by this point. Like, so I just kind of, that's just why most of the time I'm just solo. But I guess back to the weather too, though, I just want to say it's not like it's not a battle. You're not battling against the weather. I'm actually like, embracing it and enjoying it, in the morning, no matter what the conditions are. It was just like when it was raining, that's what I tell my students, and I tell my daughters, like, I feel like I'm literally like them, like 8 years old again, running in the rain, because as adults, we don't run in the rain, right? We take an umbrella, we got a rain jacket, and we're trying to get in and out of places as quick as we can without getting wet. So when it's raining in the morning, it's kind of nice, because it's like, I feel like a kid, like I'm actually like, I'm running in the rain. And then, same thing, if it's just blowing 40-mile-per-hour gust, and I see the trees swaying, it's just like, I just think it really helps us get connected back to nature and the weather, and just, I'll see shooting stars some mornings and that kind of stuff. And I just think it's, there'll be some cows sleeping, and I'll see them, they'll perk up and look at me like, what is this nut doing? So I think it's that's what I really enjoy about it. It's not a battle with weather. It's like enjoying it really more so.
It's so well put, man. I love the philosophy. I love the getting up early. Really, everything you're saying, I connect with. We're talking training philosophy, and there's three things when we kind of communicated prior to this. So one was training in conditions that are harder than the race. And so we've talked about that. And then you just referenced one of the others. So the other two things to me are kind of the upper body strength and cross training, and then volume. So I want to touch on both, but tell us, man, about you just really said that you believe the upper body and core strength is critical to your running. Tell us about that and how you incorporate it.
So, I really don't do anything heavy lifting at all, as far as like, what you would think is a typical weight program or anything like that, bench press or anything like that. I just do a lot of body weight exercises, and then I have some 40s, 20s, and 10 dumbbells, and that's it. And I've been like that probably for the last, 20 years. I'm not a big gym person. I don't like going to gyms, and I don't want a bunch of weight equipment at my house, so that's all I really need. And I can tuck those in a corner somewhere and I'm good to go. But I mainly just, I know I should switch it up. I pretty much do the same thing Monday through Friday. I'll do like 4 sets of, a bunch of push-ups, which end up over being about 300 something push-ups. And then I'll do some shoulder presses, some tricep work, some curls, some shoulder stuff. And then I'll do over 350 different core moves. And so I can do that in about 25 minutes, just really kind of right when I wake up, boom, go upstairs and just hit it. I don't, I don't even think about it. It's just my body just knows, go up steps and start getting it. So, but I think, I'm not sure, but if how many runners really pay attention to their upper body and their core, because just working with coaching track a little bit at the high school, I mainly coach soccer, but I helped coach track and field and worked with some great track coaches. And, one big thing that I've learned over the years is that, you don't want to waste any energy with, having a weak upper body. And what I mean by that is having poor form, especially when you start getting in distances where, you're leaning forward or your shoulders are slumping over or you're using your arms way too early, and that's just like so much wasted energy. And so I try to be, your posture when you're running, be very still, be very, not just like where you're just like, can't move and you're so tight and rigid, but I try to keep, everything from the waist up very, very still. And, and that sometimes I'll play it like a game with my headlamp, I'll see how much my headlamp is bouncing. But, you can also watch other runners. I was watching it during the race and I could literally tell you like who wasn't going to be here much longer just by the way their stride was and how much up and down movement they had or side to side movement. And, you can tell like 20 miles in, like, I just don't see that lasting, I mean, you can just really pick that out. So I just tried to really concentrate on keeping everything nice and posture. Because if you start leaning forward, you guys know, then your hips are behind you, then your legs are behind you. And then, everything is out of alignment. And then that's just leads to all sorts of problems. So that's why I just think the core and the upper body is so important to have is some strength to keep you in the right form.
So that's a lot of push-ups. I'm going to be honest with you.
If you could start Zooming Jeff every morning so you guys can do that together.
Man alive. I would still be doing them from this morning. It's quite impressive.
Well, quite impressive. Do like 20 and then take a break, 20, take a break, 20, take a break. So, you just build up to it.
Yeah, you just said 300. You said 300 push-ups in 25 minutes plus 350 ab exercises or something to that effect too.
Do the push-up you're in. It's like run the mile you're in. Just do the push-up you're in, Jeff. Don't look at the 300.
But the weights and stuff are really light. You know what I mean? It's just like 10s and 20s, and I'm not taking any break. I'm just flying through it as quick as I can and knocking it out.
That's very, very cool. So what about volume?
Volume, again, I'm sure like everybody else, it depends on, your goal and what you're going after. But leading up to this, Uwharrie, I didn't have a whole lot of volume going into that. And I just thought, well, I tried to kind of kid myself and say, I don't have any injuries. So I guess it's going to be a wash. since I don't have a lot of training, but that didn't work out so well. But so after that, I kind of saw the last man standing race, and I thought, well, I've got, pretty much most of December and January to kind of train. So I think for this race, I did 4 100-mile weeks in a row. And then I did one of them was 100 miles in 5 days. So not over the course of 7, but the 5-day 100-mile week was just, again, switching it up. Just I would do like 10 3/4 or something like that, sometimes 11 first thing in the morning, really early, and then I would go out again at like 9 o'clock at night and do another 11 or so, and then sleep only like 5 or 6 hours. So there wasn't a lot of rest time between, by the time I got back from that night run, to eat, shower, calm down a little bit, go to bed, and get back up and run again. And so I did, that worked out really well. I think that just because I didn't really have, full 8 hours or 10 hours between, or 12 between each run, those morning runs, those I could feel them, but it was definitely worth it.
I'm very curious because those are some high miles. And I don't know, like you said, you weren't injured, at least going to Uwharrie. I'm assuming, based off of some of the things I've heard you say, that, based off of pacing, that you're not dealing with injury very often. But how do you incorporate that? How do you decide your pace? What is, when you go run a 100-mile week or 100 miles in 5 days, what is your effort like? Are you keeping it super easy? Are you focused on recovery? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say super, super easy. I mean, so kind of going into this race, I knew that I wanted to run. I thought, well, to be safe would be, in the last man standing, would be 11 half-minute miles. So I thought, well, I'm going to, try to do, those 4 weeks somewhere, when I was feeling good, maybe some 9:30s and then 10-minute miles. And so I knew that if I could, stay below 11 minutes consistently, that, I would, it would feel like a break running 11 or 11 and a half minute miles at the race. So, 9:30s, 10s is what I was pretty much averaging. I think, it wasn't, I wasn't setting any, records or speed records, but it was just more of, I didn't have any injuries. And that's the thing. If I kind of stay in that range, somewhere in there, I really have never had a major running injury. So, I find that if I stay in that range, I'm fine. But when I start really trying to do hard speed workouts and that kind of stuff, that's where, I just tend to get just more of strains, on ligaments and muscles and those types of things. So that's kind of my pace right there. Is that 8:30s are good, but if we're putting in high volumes, 100-mile weeks, I think 9:30s, 10, somewhere in there is pretty manageable.
So because everybody's pacing is different on a scale of 1 to 10, if we talk RPE or something like that, what's your effort like? Are you down at a 4? Are you focused on other things, or kind of where do you fall on that scale?
On those 9:30s and 10-minute miles, I would say that's pretty easy effort. I mean, just because I feel like I've been running so long, and my heart rate is adjusted, and so it's staying really low. I'm not, my body's kind of used to it, so I don't feel like I'm burning a lot of calories. I mean, when I would go out for those runs, I literally wouldn't take any food or water, on those 10-mile runs. I mean, I just didn't need any, so that was, I think my body's kind of adapted, I think, to that. But yeah, I'd say pretty try to stay in that very low, threshold as far as, the aerobic threshold,
Right.
It's impressive. It's a really good piece of information I think you're passing along to everybody who's listening, of how you can achieve that high volume, but make sure, regardless of what your pace is, that your effort level needs to be at a certain level to maintain it, to kind of get you where you want to be. I appreciate you sharing that. I really do. One thing you touched on in the emails we had back and forth, but also you kind of mentioned a little bit here, you've been running Monday through Friday, 4 to 5 miles in the morning. And then on the weekends, you run your longer runs. And you also have said it's like you're closing on a 3-year run streak. So what's that about?
So I guess I've kind of picked up running where I was a little competitive in it a couple of years ago, like as far as trying marathons, but I don't know. I just kind of got burnt out on marathons. They were great, don't get me wrong, but just it kind of got to where it was like, okay, I can do this distance, but you've got to do it faster. I've read an article somewhere about where people had, started some run streaks. So I kind of started looking into it, and Run Streak International, there were some people that had been doing it for like 50 years. They're still currently doing it. So I was just like, wow, that. I just felt like, because I was actually, I had, sometimes I think we are all a little guilty of expecting too much out of ourselves, as far as whether it's running or playing golf, and you get all upset, and it's like, and it's just like, I was a little depressed about, like, not really depressed, but I was disappointed, I guess I should say, that I wasn't, hitting the marathon times. And I'm just like, I just don't know. It just wasn't fun, really. And so I thought, well, if I'm not hitting these times that I want to hit, maybe I can do these, do a run streak. And that's something I can do every day. And that's a small goal that I can do every day. I may not be finishing where I want to in some of these races, but I can do this run streak. And that's something I can do every day and be successful. And so I just kind of like that challenge of just, doing that. And so I started reading into it. It was like, you have to do a 1 mile a day. You can do it on a treadmill or outside. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do 2 miles minimum a day, and all mine are going to be outside. And then that way, like, if I continue to do this as I get older, or if I get really injured or something, I could drop down to 1 mile and still be in contention. So I kind of gave myself a little wiggle room there, but no, that's been great. I think it just keeps that consistency going, where it's just like, one, the weather's never going to be an issue because I got to go run. I mean, that's just all there is to it. I'm going for a run today. So it kind of takes that out whether I'm going to or not. And I just think it just helps with just getting something done every day. Like, as far as it's my time in the morning. I get to spend, 30, 45 minutes every morning, sometimes listen to music, sometimes not, but I get to really think about a lot of things, I think, as we all do, but especially day to day, like, I just have those few moments of kind of silence where it's like, I didn't handle this situation right. I should have said this, or I'm doing this good, or where are we going to go on vacation? Or I don't know, you can just think about all these different things, but it's been just such a great experience doing a run streak. It's just, I guess, somebody was asking me about it, and I said, I guess the best way to explain it is, running has doing that has kind of helped me become a better person, and being a better person has helped me become a better runner. I think it kind of goes hand in hand there. So I've just, I've really, really enjoyed that.
That's awesome, man. So to clarify, you ran 2 miles after the last man standing?
I did.
Of course he did.
I'm impressed.
He's got a streak.
Well, I get it, but like, I still need to hear the man say it, because I mean, I was laid up, but I wasn't doing anything.
I went down to the track where I teach, and it was, I want to say, about 8 o'clock that night, and my foot was pretty swollen, and I was just going to do a mile, and I thought, well, I can, after I got through that first one, I was like, I got 4 more laps. I'm not going to, I'm doing 2. So I just, hammered out 2, and it was done, got my 2 in for the day. So that was it.
That's fantastic. Again, continue to impress. One of the things, though, that if we could, I guess, move a little bit in another direction here, we talk about mental toughness all the time here on this podcast. I think we've talked about it with just about every guest we've had. And I think it's because it's a staple of doing the types of events we do. But in our previous, conversations or emails and stuff, you mentioned, you had this statement, you said that mental toughness is not just about grit. When I read it, and then he and I discussed it, we thought, dang, that's pretty profound, because, a lot of people were going to look at mental toughness and doing ultras as having a lot to do with grit. But you see it as twofold. Obviously, you see some grit involved as well, but it's not just about grit. So could you expand a little bit about what you mean by that?
I'm dying to hear this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I'll go ahead and admit I'm a little wacky, so people are probably going to laugh at me, but that's okay. So, I used to approach some of just training runs or whatever you want to call it. Um, and I kind of used to take that mental toughness approach as just, it was, just about grit, playing when I played soccer or just whatever it was, and I thought I had that, and that can make up for maybe some of your lack of skill or training or whatnot. But, I just, okay, I got this grit. And so when I would get in tough situations with training or whatnot, I think we all you kind of know that place where you can just, okay, I'm going to just muscle my way through, or, get it done. And I don't know, I think just the more that I've been, just running ultras or really long bike rides and stuff, I've just kind of found out that I should really save that only that much, as far as grit, and only at the very worst moment do I need to tap into that. I really need to kind of just hold that off as long as possible. And so I found some different ways just to kind of how to just I don't know, just kind of let my mind float and also be very focused at the same time. So for example, sometimes, like I said, I will think about, and I think that's where the discipline comes in as far as mental strength, and is, just having the freedom to let your mind go into some bad places, and I know some people will say, well, you're going to go into some dark places and demons and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of what I like about the ultra running or endurance events, is that you kind of experience, and that's what I didn't really like about the marathons too, because I didn't really get that. But when you stay out there really long, like, you really go through a little bit of all the emotions, and it's not just mentally, it's spiritually and physically. I really believe that. So they're all kind of going through this transformation, but mentally, I feel like you have to have the freedom to explore sometimes those not so nice things about yourself, and the things that I don't like about myself, and I kind of deal with that. And it's never like, on a schedule, okay, well, now I'm going to go in this, my mind's just kind of all over the place, and then it'll go into some really happy, good things. And then sometimes it's like, I'm really appreciating the course and the nature. And I saw this huge white heron fly during the race, and just the different types of trees, and, the green swamp water. And it was just, so I just focused on that for a while. And I think, I think it's just, to me, not trying to focus so much on the mental strength as being just this grit and toughness that you have to have. You definitely need that, I think, in their situations, but I think you got to kind of hold that into reserve, because I think you only have, for me personally, there's only so much of that I have. I want to hold that off until the very, very end, and the rest of it, I'm just trying to just tap into other elements of my mind.
I'm gonna, sorry, you can ask your question in a minute, but so I'm gonna see if I can't summarize that, because I want to see if I understand, because I really like that a lot. People who do ultras, we all know who David Goggins is, or most people know who David Goggins is. He talks about this idea of numbing your mind, and it's kind of like almost deadpanning your experience, and not really feeling the moment at all, to the point of just kind of just pushing through, but not from a grit standpoint, but the numbing. Obviously, a lot of people talk about grit as well, but what you're describing is really this. You go into the moment, and you literally take everything around you, and you reframe your focus to a singular thing. And generally it sounds like outside of yourself, that allows you to kind of escape the moment, but not from an escape from what you're experiencing so much as appreciating what you're experiencing. And it reframes what you're focusing on, to not think about everything else that's going on that a lot of people are starting to do with that moment. And so is that kind of what you would say about the reframing of a focus?
Exactly. And I think it allows me to, and I think the longer and longer you stay out, it's like the deeper you can go into those emotions, obviously, right? And spiritually, and then physically. So they're all kind of, it's just not your mind that's going through it. It's all three of those things that are going through it at the same time. So it's just, to me, it's just like, I don't know. It's just this very, and unless you experience it, I had some friends text me like, man, you're crazy, 100 miles. And, and I get that. But I think, my response to them was, it's just like, it's just this really great experience. You just, I mean, for the mind, body, and soul. And yes, I think you're exactly right. I try to stay present in the moment. And yes, I do like to get distracted with music and those types of things. But um, I really think just letting your mind go and have those conversations with yourself. I mean, I'm literally like, I'm talking to myself the whole time. And that's why I don't really talk to anybody a whole lot when I race. I've done that. And I really don't like doing that because it kind of gets me off of my kind of flow and zone that I'm talking to. And also I found that if I start chatting it up, I start running at somebody else's pace, or, and I don't realize it. And I'm either running too slow or I'm running too fast. And I'm not kind of taking care of some of the, just the obvious issues that you need to take care of while you're running that long. You have to be somewhat aware. So I just found like, and it takes a lot of energy too, to have a conversation with somebody, to be honest with you. I just like to I like to just keep it all up here and save every little ounce of energy that I can for the, the race or the training or whatever.
So we actually, I think we had you and I had the conversation, and, you communicated some of that, and Jeff and I talked, because Jeff prefers to be, more on his own, I'll run with some buddies. And so I joked, and I was like, you and Russ could be like the best friends that never run together.
Oh my God, we'd be perfect together.
You know what I mean? Because you share that. But I want to jump back just real quick, man, because you started that saying, hey, people may think I'm crazy. Dude, I connect with that so much. And I think more people than you would probably, think do. And if you hear like Courtney DeWalter, she talks about digging her pain cave deeper. Every time she's in there, she literally pictures herself in the back with the chisel, just kind of working through that process, so that, like what you said, next time she's there, it's like, okay, now I can actually be deeper in this experience every time I do it. I personally call it finding my monster, or battling my monster. And I think about it the same, to some extent, but it's really just about facing that, having that conversation with that part of myself that's not always fun when you're deep down. So one other question I have as a follow-on is, so when you do find yourself in a really low spot where the conversation gets pretty dark, do you have any specific strategies? I know you talked about focusing on other things, but is there anything you tell yourself, a mantra? Like, how do you work through those really dark moments?
I think physically, that's obviously a different piece than mentally, kind of in a dark spot. So physically, I mean, yeah, I have, I think, a couple of little sayings that, I've taken from other runners, and just try to, hey, I think slow is smooth and smooth is fast, and just try to, not get too worried about how fast I am, or moving or not moving, just things like that. And then mentally, I think when I find myself in that dark spot, typically, I try to embrace it, and then it's like, okay, I think like all the rest of us, it's like, okay, well, problem solving, that's like a huge part of, in managing issues. So it's just kind of like, okay, what am I gonna do to fix this? And so whether it be, I'm just physically tired or hungry, or, I'm just kind of done with it. I think we all have those parts where it's just like, what am I doing here? This is, I'm ready to be done. Like, and I think we've all had moments like that. And I think when I get in a dark spot like that, I just keep going. And honestly, I take out the music. That's what's so funny. It's like, I think when I have music, that's usually when I'm feeling the best, and then it's like when things start kind of getting bad, I usually take the music out. I just don't want any noise. I don't want anything. And I just kind of want to just focus on literally, you hear it time and time again, the next step or the next mile or the next pine tree or whatever that may be. But I try my best to try to not get in there, as far as those really dark spots, and I think that's where the freedom of the mind, not just gritting it out, really comes into play, because you have to have enough freedom in your mind to go into those places, but also go out. And I think that takes training. It took me a long time to be able to do that and understand, like, okay, this is fine, this is good. And then, kind of let yourself get distracted in another, area, if you will. And it just, I think that's a lot of the training. I mean, it really is, it's experience. If you look at, Yeah, you got younger guys burning up the scene right now in ultra running and throwing up some crazy times, breaking course records all the time. But I think a lot of you look at is are folks in their late 30s and 40s and 50s. And I think that just comes and they're not only doing it, but they're really successful. And I think that just comes with a lot of life experience, and just, being able to let your mind have that freedom to go. And I think that's a big, big part of it.
It's good.
It's super good. And I think, so with that, man, what are you focused on next? What's next for Russ now that you got Last Man Standing behind you?
I'm not sure. I've been looking, obviously, it's like, okay, what are some other races that are available? I'm not sure. I like to, as far as racing, I typically like to stay close to home within a couple of hours, 3 hours. I don't like to go too far. It just tacks on more, of the weekend. So typically I like to stick around really close. So we'll see what pops up. And I've really kind of liked this format of this Last Man Standing because I feel like it allows me to really just focus on the distance and the time more so than the course. And not that it's not a challenging course, but if you're doing a point to point, you just, unless you've run it before, you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know how much you should save as far as energy and and so on and so forth. So I kind of like that 4 miles because I could just, I really learned the course quickly. I found my lines that I wanted to stay on and the places I wanted to avoid. And then it was just like, okay, I know this course. And then now it's just like, all I have to do is just focus on eating some and really just trying to get that mileage in. So that's, I don't know. I think that's kind of like something I want to try again. Definitely. I like the last Man Standing. I really like that format. So I think that'll probably be my next type of race, but just some more hard training. I enjoy riding bikes with my friends. So they're not runners. So, I like to keep friendships with those guys. So we'll probably go out for a ride here or there. And that's pretty much the extent of it, I would say, for right now.
Well, dude, I gotta say, you're preaching to the choir when it comes to the Last Man Standing or the Backyard Ultra. It fascinates me for the same reason, just because you can really focus on pushing some limits, and it's really just about, how do you manage the distance? That's, my next big thing is in May. I'm doing another one, and so let me know, dude, if you plug in. I'd love to continue to compare notes. We've had such a good time talking to you, and dude, you've just said so many things that I think our audience is really going to take home. Before we let you go, we got one question, left for you. And that's really, what would you say is the impact that running or ultra running has had on your life?
Oh man. What is the impact ultra running's had? So I think it's helped me get a lot of confidence in other areas that I don't typically have confidence in. And I think I've been that way pretty much my entire life. Not necessarily that I was, just this all world athlete, but I was just more successful in athletics than I was in the classroom, I think from an early age. And so that kind of just has gone throughout my entire life, that I've found that if I can, accomplish things athletic wise, that it gives me a lot more confidence to do other things. Going back to school, like I told you guys, in my late 20s, was very overwhelming to me. Not starting my career in teaching until I was in my 30s was pretty overwhelming. I'd done a lot of other jobs, but just the academic setting was very, very overwhelming, and I just did not have any confidence at all. I'm just flunked out of college my first round, 2 rounds probably, and then finally decided to go back in my late 20s, and then I'm choosing a profession to go teach other people. And where academics was probably like one of the weakest areas in my life, I felt like. But so it gave me confidence that, just for example, going back to school, that okay, I can, if I stick this out and see it through and really give it my best, that I can do this. I can do it. And I think that's what ultra running, and it doesn't matter whether it's school, but I think in my relationships with my wife and my daughters and my extended family and just other people you encounter in the world, and just all our issues that we have are, you know, that are different, you know, like I have all kind of stuff, you know, but it helps me to give me some hope that, hey, you know what, I just ran this far or this long or did this through the night or, you know, whatever. And it's like, it just kind of gives me this confidence that, you know, that if I stick it out and try my best, I may not get the result that I want, but at least I'm trying to improve. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that ultra running has given to me.
Dude, I love it.
It's a great answer.
It's so good.
It's a great answer.
Well, I just want to just give a huge thank you to you, Russ. I want to thank the Ultra Running Guys family for plugging in like you guys always do. And, you know, I think Russ sets example. Just remember, you can do more than you think you can do. So just show up. That's right. Russ, thanks so much, man, for joining us.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you for having me. You guys are great hosts, and I'm really honored and humbled for the invitation and all the great questions. And you know, appreciate it. And I hope to see you out on a course or a trail soon. We'll stay in touch for sure.
Cool.
Sounds great, man.
Thanks, man. See you.
And cut.
But dude, that's insane. So literally, we talk about Uwharrie all the time. Like it's one of the ones we want to do, like just to go run ourselves.
Can you shift to like turn towards your right so that window's not over your shoulder?
Yeah, perfect.
2 windows.
Oh no, sorry.
All right, take 2.
We've never done a take 2.
Nah, sorry, man. You're our first for just completely cutting off.
That's good. Slow down anyway.
Was that too fast?
Yeah, I feel like we're in a racing.
We freeze up again. We're good.
Okay. Oh, we're good. We're just still.
Okay, y'all are really still.
We're good. Press pause. His dog is going a little crazy, and so hold on 1 second.
All right.
I lost focus. Like there were times I was listening to you talk, and I kept thinking I'm supposed to actually follow up probably at some point with a question, but I just want to listen to you talk. I don't see a difference. I just look orange. I want to hear the fact that you slept in the van.
Yeah, no, that's as soon as you said I slept in the van, I was like, all right, we gotta come. We'll get started.
Hey, Russ, welcome back.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Sorry about all the drama. No, you totally screwed me up.
Told you, Russ.
I just got to get through the intro, and the rest of it will be all right.
So, Russ, that was really for you because, you know, I just make sure you're not nervous because I figure if I rattle him, you'll laugh at him.
All right, that's right.
Welcome to my life.
Take 3. I think we lost him.
We lost you. No. Did we run out of time?